followed you for hours during our live coverage last night. Michigan played a huge role in this election.
Political reporter Rick Albin here now with a county-by-county look at the numbers to show us how Michigan went red for the first time since 1988.
You know, you think about it, 4 years ago, you had a native son of sorts in Mitt Romney, and Republicans really thought they had a shot of changing Michigan for the first time since, as you say, 88. This time around, it happened. I'm not sure every Republican thought it would, but I can show you why I think it did. Let's come over and take a look at some of these numbers, because if you look at the map and you see these bluish areas or the whitish areas, obviously these are areas that were trending more for Hillary Clinton than for Donald Trump. But let's take a look at some of those traditional areas. For example, if we go to, let's see if I can dismiss that. My apologies. The fact of the matter is that when we got to look at the numbers in places like Genesee County and Wayne County, we started to see that the numbers were obviously changed from 4 years ago. We'll try that again. In Genesee County, here's what we had. 52-43, obviously Clinton wins with a difference of 18,570 votes. But from 4 years ago, if you look at it, the difference was 46,000 votes. That's more than enough to make up the difference statewide, but it's replicated all across the state in places where you would expect heavy Democratic turnouts, like Wayne County, where there was a difference of 381,000 4 years ago, only 288,000 this year. So that's where you start to see the drop off. The turnout wasn't working out the way Democrats had hoped to in those traditional Democratic areas. For Republican areas like Ottawa County, that you just heard Kenton talking about, the turnout here was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 135,000. If you look at that from 4 years ago, it's roughly the same, a little higher turnout than it was, but still less than it was 8 years ago. So the idea is that it was all about turnout. And Brian, you were with me and everybody else at two big events on Monday, and that the whole idea was to get out the vote. And so the question that we had then was, who's going to win on this thing? Who's going to turn out their vote in bigger numbers? It appears, after looking at these numbers, it was Donald Trump. Not necessarily because of those stops, but that's how it turned out. The turnout is what turned the difference in a very narrow election in Michigan.
He overachieved in rural areas.
He did. And when you think about that, he's turning out people not in the big areas, not in the metro areas, but he's turning them out by the few hundreds here and the few hundreds at each precinct, and that adds up to that small, less than $12,000 vote difference over the course of the state. But it doesn't matter. It's enough to turn it red, and 16 electoral votes that in the end he turned it up not to need. But at one point last night, that looked to be the deciding factor, or one of them.
Perhaps, yeah. First time in a generation.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Rick.